Quentin Skinner's The Foundations of Modern Political Thought is a monumental work of intellectual history that seeks to explain the transformation of European political ideas from the medieval to the early modern period. Skinner challenges the notion that political thought is simply a reflection of social or economic conditions. Instead, he emphasizes the historical and linguistic context of political ideas, showing how thinkers engaged in debates that were deeply rooted in their time. He argues that modern political thought emerges from a reinterpretation of classical ideas in light of new social, economic, and religious conditions. Specifically, the Renaissance revival of Roman republicanism and humanist learning laid the groundwork for modern concepts of the state, sovereignty, and individual rights. Methodology Skinner is associated with the Cambridge School of Intellectual History, which emphasizes contextualism, understanding ideas within the historical circumstances in which they were produced. Speech Act theory, analyzing texts not just for content, but for what the authors were trying to achieve, persuade, criticize, or legitimize actions. Interdisciplinary approach, combining history, political science, philosophy, and philology to interpret texts accurately. This methodology allows Skinner to examine the pragmatic function of political texts, revealing the intended effects and arguments rather than reading them anachronistically through modern lenses. 3. Key themes and ideas. A. The revival of classical republicanism. Skinner emphasizes the rediscovery of Roman political thought during the Renaissance, particularly the works of Cicero and Polybius. Renaissance thinkers were fascinated with the idea of a republican mixed constitution, balancing monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy to prevent tyranny. This revival influenced debates about civic virtue, liberty, and the role of citizens in governance. B. The humanist contribution. Italian humanists like Petrarch, Bruni, and Machiavelli were pivotal in translating and interpreting classical texts. They reshaped political discourse by emphasizing history, civic morality, and the practical realities of power rather than purely theological or scholastic reasoning. Humanist education fostered rhetorical skills, encouraging participation in public debate and critical reasoning about C. Machiavelli and the realpolitik breakthrough. Machiavelli represents a decisive break from medieval thought. In The Prince and Discourses on Livy, he separates politics from morality, advocating pragmatic strategies for maintaining power. Skinner situates Machiavelli historically. He is responding to Italy's fragmented political landscape and the decline of civic republicanism, not offering timeless maxims. Part D. The question of liberty. Liberty for Skinner is not an abstract moral principle, but a condition tied to law, civic structure, and social institutions. He traces the evolution of concepts like civil liberty and political freedom from medieval communal traditions to Renaissance Republican thought. Republican liberty depends on the absence of domination rather than mere freedom of action. E. The state and sovereignty. Skinner examines how Renaissance thinkers began to conceptualize the state as an autonomous entity with its own interests, rather than merely the domain of a ruler or the church. He shows the gradual development of ideas about sovereignty, political authority, and the rule of law, which would later influence early modern theorists like Hobbes and Locke. F. The role of historical knowledge. Understanding political thought requires knowledge of historical context. Wars, economic change, religious reformations, and civic crises shape the way theorists frame their arguments. Skinner demonstrates that many concepts, virtue, liberty, tyranny, were reactive. They addressed contemporary political problems rather than abstract ideals. 4. Notable figures discussed. Skinner covers an extensive range of thinkers, with emphasis on Cicero and Roman historians as models of republican ideas, Petrarch and Bruni, humanist thinkers who revived classical ideas, Machiavelli, the realist analyst of power and politics, Guicciardini, historian and political theorist of pragmatic governance. Later Renaissance figures, including thinkers who debated monarchy, civic virtue, and liberty in France, Italy, and the Low Countries. And 5. Impact and significance. 1. Historical reinterpretation of political thought. Skinner's work revolutionized the study of political theory by emphasizing historical specificity and the performative function of texts. 2. Foundation for the Cambridge School. It cemented the approach of studying intellectual history as a series of contextually grounded speech acts. 3. Bridging past and present. By tracing the Renaissance roots of modern political concepts, Skinner connects classical and early modern thought to contemporary political debates. 4. Influence on political science. His work influenced scholars in political theory, history, and philosophy, encouraging interdisciplinary approaches to understanding ideas. Critiques and limitations. Some critics argue that Skinner's strict contextualism can underplay the philosophical content of texts, reducing ideas to merely reactive instruments. Others note that his focus is Eurocentric, largely ignoring non-Western political traditions. Nevertheless, his emphasis on intent, context, and linguistic function remains highly influential in the study of political thought. Conclusion. The Foundations of Modern Political Thought offers a meticulous, contextually grounded analysis of the intellectual shifts that gave rise to modern European political ideas. Skinner shows that concepts like liberty, sovereignty, and civic virtue are historically contingent, emerging from debates shaped by the political, social, and economic realities of the Renaissance. The work is both a scholarly resource and a methodological guide, exemplifying how to study political thought not as timeless philosophy, but as historically situated discourse. Its significance extends beyond history to the study of political theory, emphasizing that understanding the past is essential for interpreting modern ideas.